morning for some people who are online. So welcome everybody. Welcome to our home. And our point here today is to make sure that one day we're opening your door and saying welcome home to you, to your forever home or your first home. So congratulations on your first step to home ownership. I am Amelia Marie. Just so you know, I'm going to be talking to you a little bit today about the first time home buyer process. I have actually been doing home buyer seminars for about 8 years now. Every home buyer seminar is different. And the best part about every single one of them, there has been at least 2 to 3 successes in every home buyer seminar where somebody who thought, maybe I'm 2 years out, maybe I'm a year out, has found themselves a little closer to 90 days to 6 months in purchasing their home. And there's nothing more wrong with home ownership because that's something we all need, right? A place to call home. So the first couple of things I wanted to talk about is some of the steps to be prepared for. It is a big deal. This is as big as getting married, as big as having a child. And for me, I know it's as big as having a puppy because that can turn your whole life around. But here's the thing. There's a couple of steps I want you to be prepared for. So if we can have a conversation here. On a scale to 1 to 10, how badly do you want to be either a homeowner, a first-time homeowner, or do you want to upsize or downsize your home? On a scale to 1 to 10, is anybody brave enough to let me know? A 15. That's off the charts. I love it. I love it. Anybody else?
I think so.
15 off the charts. This is a good group here.
High achievers.
High achievers. What do you think? I'm gonna put you on the spot, guys. A 10? Okay, so this is a great group, man. Okay, so in these eager processes, there's gonna be some steps that we need to go through. And today you've been brought here by a real estate professional. And for me, I'm a little biased. These are the best of the best in the industry. I'm also an agent here in this company, but I chose to be here because of the people I get to work with. Franklin, Leslie, Steve, Maybelline, Brandon. These are all people who study their trade day in and day out. If you were going to the doctor and you were looking for the best doctor in the United States, coming here to C21 Everest, you're getting the best agent in the United States because they're here training on how to get your offers accepted and how to lead and guide you through this process. I'm going to give you a quick overview. The first thing that we're going to sit at when you have your one-on-one with your agent, you're going to be asked for some specific documentation. You're going to be asked for 2 years of taxes. Pretty personal, right off the bat. Well, we need that because we need to get you pre-qualified for a loan unless you're buying cash. Anybody here buying cash? Okay, I wish, right? I wish I could buy it. But so we want to get you pre-qualified to the best of our lender's ability. We were going to have a lender here, but we want you to be able to choose the lender that you feel comfortable with. Our specific trade is real estate, finding you the house. We have multiple lenders that we can send you to and great partnerships with those lenders. The camera's making me a little bit nervous, just so you know, so I'm just going to throw that right on out there. Every time Brandon stands up, I'm like, okay. He threw that on me earlier today. This was not supposed to be recorded. And it's live, so you never really see me sweat until it's live. So should I drink some?
You're doing great.
Okay, good. So I just got read by the.
Does anybody else want champagne?
So anyways, so you're going to be asked for those tax records for the last 2 years. You're also going to be asked for bank statements, pay stubs. These are all necessary things for you and your agent to gather for your lender. A lot of times I see first-time buyers be a little bit lackadaisical in this process, and they wonder why we can't take them to go see properties right away. But there is a funny thing that I always find when you're buying a first-time home. You go to your Zillow, your Redfin, and you look at the $3 million property right away, you pull it up, and you're like, oh my gosh, I can have all of these upgrades. Well, eventually. But your lending process is really going to show you which property will specifically fit your needs in the amount of money that you want to pay for. I'm very strategic in telling all of my first-time buyers, whether they're married couple or a single person, you want to be married to your lifestyle and not to your property. That's a very specific thing that I like to tell people, because we don't ever want you to go over and above what you're willing and wanting to pay, because it should be a comfortable living arrangement. That's one thing that I'm very proud to say for myself. Oh, come on in. Hello.
Hi
Welcome.
guys, come in.
We got 3 seats right
Seats
here.
over here.
Yes.
Good. Good to see you. Likewise.
Sorry about that.
How are you?
So I like to tell people, we want to put within your budget. So also on a scale of 1 to 10, you thought about you're all 15s and 10s, what price range would be comfortable for you monthly? Whether it's what you're paying now for your mortgage or what you're paying now for your rent. Can you go a little bit higher, or do you want to go a little bit lower? Those are all going to be deciding factors into the property that you're going to try to find that is right for you in this time in your life. Remember, we say forever home or your starter home. Sometimes when you're going into becoming a first-time home buyer, it's not the perfect property that you would always dream about, but it's that starter property where you're building equity and you're going to be able to purchase that. Oh my gosh, I'm losing my words. I look at the camera again. What the heck? I'm like, we're never recording this again. I'm like, woohoo. It's going to be about finding the right property and upgrading to the right property that's right for you. See, I'm just going to forget that it's even there. So, because it's really just all about you guys and finding you the right property for you. I also wanted to speak a little bit about why using an agent is. Okay, Brandon, I need you to turn my slides on if you could do that.
Sure.
For me.
No problem. Get that up.
I like to speak in front of people, just so you know. And this is totally not me. Everybody's like watching going, oh my gosh. No, I'm not saying today. I like to speak
Uh-oh.
just so you know. Oh, even worse.
Welcome. There you go. All right. So I don't know how to get rid of that part on share screen now.
It's okay.
So let me see if I can pause it.
Okay.
There you go.
Like
We're done. Yeah, well, that's off the Facebook. So let me. There we go. It's paused. Turn the volume. I'm just gonna turn the volume off. There we go. Volume's off.
This is all just a roast, right?
Yep. You're good. Volume's off, so we shouldn't hear it anymore.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, no problem. Sorry about that.
It's okay.
All right. You having fun yet?
No. So just so you know, I'm really not shy. I used to have my radio show, like 100,000 people I used to speak in front of. When it comes to being on a Zoom camera, I'm like, oh. But you know what? Let's go with that.
Yeah.
It's fear, right? You are just a little bit fearful of this market. Okay, there's some good hands. And as you should be. Because remember, this is a big step. This is, and for some people, a leap of faith. But there's a great thing. If you go to this third slide, we are your safety net. As your realtors, we're studying the market each and every day so that when you jump off the cliff called home ownership, myself, Brandon, Leslie, Franklin, Maybelline, we're your parachute. That is what we're here to do. We are here to make sure you have the right lender, the right property for you, and the right offer. You might say, Amelia, the right offer? Yes, it's a strategic process now. There hasn't been in the last 5 years that I've known an easy transaction where you're like, oh yeah, you're just gonna get every single home, everything you want, you're gonna get it. There's gonna be different solutions, but there's only one plan A. There is no other plan B. Plan A is to get you to home ownership, but your agent will guide you to different solutions on how to get there. So when I say we are your safety net, know that you can go to your agent anytime and say, I don't feel comfortable with this payment, because there's an adjustment that can happen to get you to your goals. And I just want to kind of talk a little bit about this. How many of you are a little bit maybe fearful about the down payment, or even know that you have to do a down payment? Everybody know that you have to do a down payment when you're purchasing a house? How many of you wish you had a little bit more right now for a down payment? Yeah, I agree. And some people maybe we started saving for a down payment. There are options for you. We have loan options. We have partnered with specific companies such as Gem Mortgage and other lenders that we have within our company that have down payment assistance programs. When you hear first-time buyers, you think, well, there should be a little bit of a benefit. There is a benefit. And when you sit down with your lender, they're going to talk about that benefit, and they're excited to help you get that assistance. And sometimes, as just humans, we get a little bit anxious to ask for an advantage. But this is an advantage because homeownership is so important for us and you and your family. So also, I want to ask, as first-time home buyers, how many of you have checked your credit in the last 30 days? Anybody? Good. That's a good thing. Well, it's okay. And I tell them that because they're going to be checking your credit. And that's always a little scary. But I will tell you this. I've had a few first-time home buyers come in and they weren't where they really wanted to be. Our team here at C21 has partnered with some great credit experts. So if you're 2 steps away from getting your dream home, maybe from a past medical bill or something that's holding you back in your credit, guess what? That's another layer of our parachute here, is that we can help you with that, because it is a part of your home ownership journey and nothing to be embarrassed about, because we deal with it on a daily basis. And remember, the more transparency you have with yourself and your agent, the faster you're going to be able to call that property your home. Also, any other questions in the market? I know we talked about the market. What are you hearing in the market? Anybody? What are you hearing in the market right now? Anybody? When you're buying, has anybody told anybody in their family they're thinking of buying a house right now? It's not a good time to buy a house. What is their reason for not being a good time to buy a house? It's gonna come down. Okay. Anybody else? We're gonna see. Anybody else hearing that? It's gonna come down. You're hearing that too? It's gonna come down. It's gonna crash, right? Prices are going up. Yeah. Prices are going up. Do you know why prices are going up?
Inflation and something else.
We're selling properties because right now, I know this is going to sound like a little bit of downfall, but it's really good news. We're not looking at a crash as of yet. What we're seeing is not a lot of inventory on the market. The advantage for you in working with our agents is our agents are actually out in the field looking for the listings on a weekly basis. Myself, Leslie, Maybelline, Franklin, Brandon, all of us here are finding our clients listings to get them into at the forefront. But if there's not a lot of properties on the market, are we really looking towards a crash? It's always a great time to buy when it's a great time in your life. We go to the next slide. Let's pass my picture up and let's go with the trust cost of renting. It should be the truest, but we won't say anything to make this slide. So I want to show you something. Can you guys see this?
Yeah.
Okay. About 7 years ago, people were able to buy homes for $500,000. That was on average, and you're shaking your head. And we remember that time, right? I was driving by, over by Pacific High School the other day. Anybody know where Pacific High School is in Oxnard?
Mhm.
And the person I was with said, did you know I bought a 5-bedroom for $380,000 in that neighborhood? And I bought 2 others in the new development behind it for about $295. And I was like, oh my gosh. Well, guess what? Those properties went on sale for that $500,000 mark. And now that property is probably around somewhere in the $889 range. But for the renter is paying $2,800, which I feel is a low. You're probably paying somewhere around $3,000 to $3,500 in rent. The cap rate on that rent is 6.7%. But unfortunately, as a renter, you're paying 100% interest. Most people rent for an average of 36 months. If you're renting for 36 months, you have invested $100,000 in someone else's rental. So when people say it's not a good time to buy in this market, I say, I would rather invest in myself and have a 1% return. And we know it's much higher because in the last 40 years that I have been alive, I have not seen prices decrease back to when my grandparents bought in Oxnard at $40,000. So I ask you this, is it better to invest in your rental, or is it better to invest in yourself? There's still a couple of other strategic things that you need to know about to ease the path to homeownership. And my very good friend and branch manager, Brandon Rainey, is going to be able to explain in detail how we as agents are going to be able to help you, keep you safe, and guide you to homeownership. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
it. Awesome job.
Thanks. Yeah, no more camera.
So just to touch on the market, as we talk about why you're purchasing or why you're looking to become a homeowner, okay? There was a stat out there, this was about a year ago, that the average homeowner's net worth was about $240,000. The average non-homeowner's net worth was about $7,500, right? It's not a secret that the way to build for our future and invest is going to be through real estate. Now, with the question about the market going to crash, right? We hear that, oh, market's going to crash. As Amelia pointed out, extremely low inventory. What I mean by that is these are some big numbers that or names and numbers I'm going to talk about. It's called the absorption rate. The absorption rate is something that us as agents, we have access to. And that shows us where our inventory levels are at. Has anybody heard of a buyer's market versus a seller's market? Does anybody know what kind of market we're in right now? That's okay. And there's no right or wrong answers, right? I'll explain it a little bit. Don't worry about it. But what are your thoughts? If we hear the market's going to crash, what would you assume? But so you said seller's market. What's the difference between a seller's market and a buyer's market?
Get more bang for your buck, so.
Okay, so if you're selling in a seller's market, seller's going to make more money, right? Seller make more money. What kind of market does that look like? Does that look like lots of offers, multiple offers on each listing? Our home's going pretty quick.
Yeah.
So these are key things. If you're taking any kind of notes, I don't know if you have notepads or do we have any notepads available? Or if you can keep it on your phone. I got it. But DOM is called days on market, right?
Yeah.
So the craziest seller's market that I've seen in my history, I've been doing it about 20 years now, was about January of last year. Average days on market, even though it would say 7, really most homes, the second it hit by that weekend, already had multiple offers.
Yeah, they'd sell before they'd even go on the market.
They'd sell before they go on the market.
Is the thing.
It was 150,000 over asking price. They were waiving all contingencies, appraisals, right? So we're gonna talk about different things through the process that are gonna protect you as buyers, protecting your investment, making sure that you're not overpaying for the home, as well as different negotiation opportunities. So we're gonna jump into that, okay? So your days on market in the seller's market, sellers versus buyers, right? Seller's market, days on market is low, right? So we'll say like less than 7 days. And this doesn't mean that if it's more than 7 days, it's not a seller's market. It's kind of a clue. A neutral market, as we talked about that absorption rate, is 6 months inventory. Okay, so this is a key. So what absorption rate means is the amount, it's a number. So right now in Camarillo, the absorption rate's about 1.6, meaning there's about 1.6 months inventory on the market. That it would take 1.6 months to sell everything that's active right now based on your average days on market, which average days on market right now, Camarillo, most of Ventura County is pushing 60 days on the market now. Okay, so we were at 7, now we're at almost 60 days. So you would think that's going more to the buyers, right? Longer days on market.
Or room to negotiate.
Or room to negotiate. So, but with 6 months inventory, so that'd be absorption rate at a 6 or higher in 2008 when the market crashed and was at its worst, it was 16 months inventory. Wow. That's how much inventory was out there. That's a buyer's market, okay? And so everybody's like, well, I want to wait for that. I want to wait for 2008 to happen. What happened in 2008? How were jobs in 2008?
Yeah.
Was it good or bad?
Bad.
It was horrible. The housing market affects every other market out there. So the key, as you're trying to time, and we have a lot of people around us who care about us, who love us, who don't want us to make a mistake. You have to look at the source. And it's nothing against, this is family that cares about us. Like, no, don't do it. I don't want you to get in too deep. I don't want you to take this leap because I don't want you to be, what do they say? You know, basically you're strapped because all of your money is going into your house. First, look at the source. Have they ever purchased a home? Have they created wealth through real estate, right? And it's not saying that somebody can't give you good advice if they haven't, but people who haven't typically are going to dissuade other people, you know, to not do it because they haven't had the courage to do it, okay? That's the reality of it. So it's not to say not to listen to them or not to love them. You appreciate what they're saying, but you want to look at people who have done it. And what are they going to tell you? They're going to say, if you can get a home, right? And that's the advantage of what we're talking about with the market and what's happening right now. And why I'm so excited that you're all here today, because you're getting ready right now. That's the first step, as Amelia talked about, okay? You took the first step of coming in, being brave enough to come in. We got camera recording over here, right? Making us all feel uncomfortable, but this is all, and just so you know, it's all private. We keep it for us. So if you want a copy of that link, we can share it to you afterwards because we're gonna hit some heavier stuff coming up here really shortly. But the advantage of buying right now is many other people are concerned with the interest rates being higher. That's what slowed the market down. Okay, so with the interest rates increasing, more people are backing off. So we have about 30% of the buyers now that you're up against versus before you were up against 28 offers on any property that looked decent, right? And I'm going to talk about and remind me, bucket A, bucket B, and this is a strategy of how to approach a home. And you're going to look at numbers like days on market. You're going to look at the price and you're going to see, I think that home's a little overpriced. That's okay. Sometimes it's still good to see those homes because those homes aren't getting the action. Okay. And that's what your agent's going to help you with the strategy piece of it. So it's really important to understand right now, less competition because many buyers are held back. So if you're getting the ball rolling before everybody else figures it out, now you can pick the home you want in the neighborhood that you want. And depending on where you're looking at, that's the biggest challenge is to try to figure out. You're looking at the monthly payment like, oh my gosh, how am I going to figure this out? How am I going to do that for the next 30 years? There's creative programs and options out there to help make that happen. So real quick, just on a quick success story. Does that make sense with the market here so far? You guys, are we good with that? So in Camarillo right now, it's at about a 1.6 months absorption rate. So is that a seller's or a buyer's market? Seller's market, okay, but longer days on market, you'll see more price reduction. So now, where before every home that came on was going crazy. Now, if there's 10 homes on the market, 1, 2, or 3, bucket A, the one that everybody wants, that looks like HGTV, that's perfect, that's beautiful, right? We want that beautiful, perfect property in the perfect neighborhood. Out of 10, 3 of those homes are going like that. Still multiple, not 20, 30 offers, but as high as 7 offers. You're still getting, so they're still very competitive. Bucket B, maybe the home that's got a little bit of wallpaper, it's got some popcorn ceiling, it's got some things that it's like, oh, well, kind of reminds me of, no offense, David, with grandma's house, right? Kind of looks like grandma's, kind of smells like grandma's house when we walk into it, right? That's bucket B. Those homes have sat on the market a little longer. The agents sometimes, not knocking any agents out there, took photos with their phones, right? Because they didn't want to spend a little extra money on it. And the home may be a great home with great bones, great opportunity, just needs a little bit of love, right? Good paint, little carpet, that's bucket B. Those homes, when you start seeing it, 60 days on the market, 90 days on the market. I just spoke with the buyer last night. I was like, well, isn't that a red flag? It's been on the market for 90 days. There's something wrong with the home, right? I said it could be, or it could be something wrong with the agent, right? Maybe in how the agent represented that property. Maybe that's the gem that everybody's passing up because it's overpriced. Maybe it's the gem that isn't being exposed to marketed property. Maybe it's an out of area agent that has the listing and nobody's showing the property, or it's one of these. We won't get into the different brokerages, but there's so much that we know about as agents and professionals that these are sometimes the gems. So we personally will check out inventory to try to find these types of properties. And if you get one of those, now you got some negotiation power. Because the longer the days are on market, and you're going to lean on your agent to talk to you about it. But other things that you can do is, Amelia talked about the down payment, right? We can also negotiate credits on more of these bucket B type properties. Okay, these are the gems. These are sometimes the difference of whether you get a home or not, right? If you can open your mind to it. So that's part of the hard thing is we're like, no, these are absolutes. It needs to be a detached home. It's got to have the white picket fence. It's got to have this yard. So you want to start looking at what can you compromise with? What can't you compromise with, right? And some of that will be, as you'll see in certain properties, laundry, parking, garage, right? Is it a carport or do you actually have a 2-car garage? Sometimes there's a shared garage. So these are the different things that you want to start evaluating. Okay, no, I can't share laundry. It's got to be my own laundry. That's a minimum requirement. Like it's absolute. If I'm buying a house or I'm buying a condo or townhouse, I have to have my own laundry. These are the conversations you want to have with your agent. Okay. We'll get into a little bit more, but I just wanted to make sure I touched on that a little bit on the market. But let's jump into the process here. And any questions on that before I get into it? Yeah. So now we're going to do, you're out there, you're shopping around, you're looking at property. So first step, as Amelia said, you're going to meet with your agent first. You're going to sit down, they're going to do what's typically called a buyer consultation. They're going to sit to you and ask you questions about what your needs, what your wants, what areas you're looking for. After you have a good understanding of this, kind of counts as that initial buyer consultation, but you're going to want to do a little bit more with your agent, okay? And you're going to understand the process because once you know the rules to the game, you know how to win, okay? So once you understand how the market works, what kind of market we're in, and you're working with an agent that you trust, that you know has your best interest, once you have that, now it's like, okay, next step is we need to talk to a loan officer, make sure we got our financing in order. Has anybody been pre-approved in the room yet? Is it, it's okay if you haven't, I'm just curious. Okay, so the next step would be that, right? After you've learned the rules of what to do, then you do that. Once you have that in place and you have what's called a pre-approval, there's a difference between a pre-qualification versus a pre-approval. Many people will feel comfortable with the big banks, go into their bank, they'll say, hey, you know, walk in, I'm thinking about buying a house, great, you're pre-qualified for 800,000, 700,000 or 500. They ask you like 2 questions, okay, that's a pre-qual. And so us as agents, listing agents, when we list a home, we look at it and we say it's just a pre-qual. It's not a pre-approval. So pre-approval is better. Even more than that, it's called a DU approval, direct underwriter approval. DU approval means that it's been submitted to the underwriter. You basically completed a full package of everything you have, as Amelia talked about. You have your taxes, you'll have your pay stubs, you'll have your bank statements. These are the things that they're gonna ask you for. You're gonna get them all that information. Once you get that, then they can run it under the, what's called the underwriter. The underwriter basically looks at your risk. And they look at your risk of, is this person pretty solid? Or are there some red flags? And you got red flags, it's okay. You get the professionals to help you walk through the process. Don't try to do this on your own. Don't try to figure it all out on the internet and look at the internet interest rates and look at you need professionals who do this for a living and who are going to protect you and guide you through it. Because sometimes I've had people in the past tell me, oh, well, all I did was pay off all my debt. And you can have some debt. There's a certain amount of healthy debt that you can have, okay? So it's called your debt to income ratio. And so typically you want to be under what's called 42% debt to income. If your income, just for easy math, is $10,000 a month, your debt, this is your car payment, if you have student loans, revolving credit is under the 4,200, that's $44,200, that's including your mortgage payment, okay? These lenders do not want to give you something that you're spending 80% of your income on your house. So that's the healthy debt to income ratio. It's a little bit more complex, things to think about as you're going through the process, okay? And you're going to find out, okay, with my mortgage payment, with this revolving debt that I have, this isn't utilities, it's not like your electric bill and those things, it's just your revolving debt. They're going to look at those numbers, and so they can come up with creative things. You have a certain amount of savings, say, you know what, let's pay your car off. Or if you have it, they're going to ask you, is it on a lease or is it on a purchase? If it's on a purchase, what can you do with it, with the loan?
Pay it off.
You can pay it off. What else could you do? You could refi it,
Oh,
and you can stretch it out on a longer period of time and lower that monthly payment, because it's not the total debt, it's your monthly debt. So you could have 200,000 in student loans. You've gone to law school, you've gone, or to any other crazy school, like some people I know, right? You have student loans. And I met one guy who was a PhD from Cal State Channel Islands, enormous amount of student loan debt. She's crying because she got her eviction notice, or 60-day notice, it should say eviction. She got her 60-day notice because the owner wanted to sell. It took her like 16 rental properties to get this. Her credit was screwed because of school, becoming a PhD. And she wasn't able to pay her student loans right out the gate. And she explained the whole story, but she's just in tears. Like, it took me 16 rentals to get this one, and they just gave me 60 days notice. Within a month, she was buying a home. She bought her first home at $350,000 over by the avenue in Ventura. Nice little 600 square foot home. She's single. She loves it. That's her little casita, right? And she loves it. And she became a homeowner. But going from getting the worst news she thought she could get, within 30 days, she was buying a home. Her mom helped her, was a co-borrower. And these are different things that you can check out to see, okay, maybe somebody's willing to help me out, to help increase my debt to income ratio, to increase my purchasing power. So it's just these conversations. So we don't know what we don't know. And that's why I want to share some of these stories, because we've seen situations that seemed impossible become a reality. And then now they're really in tears, crying because they never thought they'd be a homeowner here in Ventura County. That's the thing my wife said growing up here. And I was a Navy brat, so I came here in '96, freshman year in high school. We met at Rio Mesa High School. But she said growing up here, she never thought she'd be a homeowner here. So that day for her was a huge day for her, when we became homeowners in Camarillo and we're buying our first place together. It's possible, very possible. Another set of friends, and I'm just going to share these stories because it's really important to understand. We sit down, we do something similar to this. We actually go and we had some wine, and he's taking notes just like you're taking right now, talking about the process. They did a first-time home buyer program, down payment assistance, $5,000 out of pocket. Bought their first home over by the Vineyards, 3-bedroom, 2-bath. It's about, say, 6 years ago now, 5-6 years ago. $330,000. It's about a $350 a month HOA. Total payment with $5,000 out of pocket, it was $2,600 a month, including HOA, everything. Okay, you actually may know this family through baseball. So this is actually they're a baseball family that we knew. Buy their first place, they buy it at 333. 2 years later, Wife doesn't want to sell it. Her family lives right across the street. Husband's like, we got to go to Camarillo. Okay? And so they sell their place for $405,000. We started at $412. It's the highest sale at that time. It's 1,200 square feet, 3-bedroom, 2-bath. We sell at $405. They make $50,000 in equity from that 5 to 50 in 2 years. That $50,000 now goes into their new home. They buy it on Landon in Camarillo. It's in central Camarillo, about 1,600 square feet, 3-bedroom, 2-bath. And now they're in a detached home. They go from a condo to a detached home 2 years later. Buy it at $590, I think, right under $6. Lived there for 2 years. Guess what they sell it at?
800.
Close, 770. So now starts from 5, goes to 50. Now they're netting over $170,000 when we sell that place 2 years later. On the market on 2 years.
They're
What's
also
that?
buying more expensive, aren't they? I mean, there's no way out of that.
So you say moving up to a more expensive home? You
Correct?
can do either.
Yeah.
You could go up or you could go down, but they didn't. So they did buy more expensive, but guess what happened over that time? Their income increased.
There you go.
They paid off a car. So at that time, they could handle $3,600 a month mortgage. Now they can handle, because they got rid of a $600 a month car payment, $4,200, and they're at the same spot, right? Instead of paying $600 towards their car to have this beautiful car, now they're putting $4,200 in their home, 2,200 square foot in the Heights on a cul-de-sac on Tiffany Court, you know where Tiffany's at. Beautiful neighborhood, cul-de-sac, 2,200 square feet, double 2 stories. And they bought that at I want to say it was about 880. So started at 333. Within 4 years, it's 2 years, they're in an $880,000 home, beautiful home, with a payment that they can handle because they took that chance on that first property. Okay. It's not always going to work out this way. It's not always, you're not typically going to make that kind, but how do you save up $180,000 in 4 years? That's the point I'm trying to make. So what you do is you move your money. You don't leave it stale. You don't stay in the same investment. You move it. And on top of all that, you have a roof over your head. And you have something that's yours that nobody can give you that 60-day notice because they're worried about the market. So could the market come down? Yes, it can come down. But you're buying this for the long run. You're not buying it to hope to sell in 2 years and then 2 years and then 2 years. You time it right, you can do that. Everybody thought in 2018. We're going to talk about the market now because that's key to know in terms of the cycle. This is what the market has done over the years. Okay, we can say we're here, right? So it's going to come crashing. The market never goes as low as the last low. So wherever the prices bottom out at, it always is higher than next low. Okay, on the height, it's always higher than the next high. So over the long term, as long as you plan to buy a home and not have to move 2 years from now, you could luck out. I don't want to say luck out. My clients took that leap of faith but they pivoted and they listened and they asked questions like, do it, jumped, do it, jumped, do it. Every time they've gotten better, right? Doesn't always work that way though, especially when the market is potentially shifting. Well, on these heights and lows over the long term, guess what the average appreciation is? No matter what, you hit on the reason why it's inflation, 3%. So over the long run, you're going to always make 3%, no matter what. Highs and lows, doesn't matter. Last 2 years, we had almost 42% in appreciation, overinflated. You would have bought January of last year, and please don't tell any of your friends or family that bought January of last year that, oh, you overpaid for the home because they were writing 100, 150,000 over asking price. That's not the kind of market you want to get into. We're not in that now. Now you're paying asking price. The last buyer that I helped out, the price dropped 50,000 from 600 down to 550. So it's a 2-bedroom gated community over by Port Hueneme, but they got into their home. It's about 1,100 square feet. It's not huge, but it's a nicer built after 2000 home in a gated community. They rather have had a 3, but they made it happen on a 2. It was on the market for 30 days and it dropped $50,000. Then we got a $15,000 credit to lower their interest rate. So their total payment would have been $4,200 a month on this home at about $560, just to put it in perspective. 5% down, okay? Pretty minimal down, not a lot of money that's down, about 30K on that property. They came in with minimal money down, get their home. This is their second home now. They bought one in Arizona just a year before. So now they've finished buying their second home. Get into the place, we get a $15,000 closing credit from the seller, which brought the rate down. So even though after the 2 years, it'll be at $4,200 a month fixed, for the first year, it's $3,600 a month. Because it's called a 2-1 buy down. Second year is $3,900 a month. Third year is 42 and fixed at that. So that can get you into the first one, especially if you're in a type of job that you know your income is going to increase, or if you know you can rent a room out, if you have a 3-bedroom, right, and are able to do some things. I don't want to say worst case scenario, but what they're banking on is that they can refi at any point in time. If the rates get just a little bit better, they refinance it. Now they lock it for 30 years. So the key is to get into a home while everybody else is scared. Get in, make sure you're set up for success for the long term, and you're going to be fine. Is there any questions with what I'm sharing right now? Because this is, I'm telling you, this is some of the most important stuff that if you can grasp this idea right now, it can make the difference of you winning and getting the house that you want, not having to compromise because it's like, no, I need a 30-year fix, which I've always been more on the conservative side. It's actually my first client that's done the 2-1 buy down, but for their situation, it was perfect. It fit exactly, and they got the house that they wanted. And the husband really wanted to be in Camarillo. Payment would have been $4,400 a month for an entry-level home in Camarillo. It's a lot of money. It's a lot of money. You know, I know for a while, 3,500, 3,000 was the magic number. Now, guess what the number is for many people? You're right. 5,500, 5,700 a month. It is. That's the common number now. When you're looking at the 700 to 800 price point, that's the common number. Still with 5% down. So the good news, and that's not to break everybody up, that's just the reality. That's why people are hesitating. They're like, whoa, wait a minute. 5,000 a month for a mortgage? No way, right? So I'm not saying to do that. What I'm saying is this is what's pumping the brakes on everybody. So the key is if you can figure something out and get a payment that you can handle and find a program that's out there that helps you get into your first home, you're going to win. You're going to get the house you want in the neighborhood you want. And that is hard to do. I've lived in Camarillo for some time. I was fortunate to buy something when I was 22 in Mission Oaks, a little colony. You know the little colony homes, right? Little colony home, 3-bedroom, 2-bath, attached property. It was about 1,200 square feet, no HOAs. That's why we did it. I also want to tell my parents if they're seeing this right now, a little bit further from them. They were in Central Camarillo. And it is small. It is, but that gave me a little bit more space. I'm 22 years old. It's like I didn't want them necessarily being able, hey guys, what do you got? Oh, okay, what's going on here? Right? They had a house, a beautiful house, just up the street from me. They're on Rockland. And this was like one street up, and it actually would have backed up. And it was a detached home. That was the home. Knowing what I know now, we should have jumped on that. Right? I bring the story up because I watched the market for 10 years. It was like winning the lotto to get anything in that neighborhood. This is Central Camarillo. This isn't, don't want to minimize it or make it a bigger deal than it is. That's how competitive it is to get in. Right now, if you're ready to go, you're going to be able to pick and choose most of these homes that are good homes. They're great homes. They were going crazy for the last decade. So get into what you can. Make sure you can handle your payments. Those are the two things. So to keep it all simple, because I know I hit with a lot with stories and everything else. Monthly payment that you can handle, and utility. It's got to fit your needs. Okay, you can't get a 1-bedroom if you have 3 kids. It's not going to work, right? It could, but it's going to be very uncomfortable. So make sure it fits your needs, and buy when you're ready to buy. Not based on what everybody's saying. Not trying to time the market, because everybody who's been saying the market's going to crash. You think this is a new thing people have been saying? How long have they been saying that since? What year? You had to guess.
6, 8 years.
6, 8 years. So anybody who was a sucker and bought 6 to 8 years ago, how do you think they've done? Great. They've done phenomenally well. I'm not saying you're going to do phenomenally well, but you're still going to see 3 to 6% appreciation. You're still going to be able to call this home your home and do what you want to do with it. And there's some great opportunities out there. Okay, so that's key thing I wanted to touch on with the market. Does that help some? All right, so now we're going to touch, what are we doing on time? I just want to make sure I'm respecting time. 10:48. Okay. So now we're gonna talk about the escrow process, okay? This is really critical to understand just kind of how it works. We're gonna be, who wants to be my buyer and seller? Does anybody want to volunteer and be a seller right now and just pick any price? We got any brave volunteers?
Seller?
Yeah, you be the seller?
Let's do 600.
Okay, so you're listing your home at 600. Tell me a little bit about the place. Is it
3-bedroom, 2-bath.
3-bed, 2-bath?
2 living rooms, formal and
All right,
family room.
yeah. So you got two living and a family room in Oxnard. 600. Yes, 3-2. Okay, sounds. Do we got any takers here? Anybody wants to write offers? Okay.
We got buyers already.
You already got buyers, right? Especially at that price point, at 600,000.
Oh, wait.
Right?
Is
For
that what they're going
3-2.
for?
What's that?
Is that what they're going for out there?
That's, there are some.
Yeah.
There are some. I actually just met with somebody actually yesterday. It's a little bit bigger. That one will be in the 7s. But there are some properties in the 6 and some in the 5s, some in the 5s too. So, yeah, as you go lower, it starts getting a little rougher, neighborhoods and condition of the home. It is. Yeah, more that you gotta look at. Okay, so we got a seller at 6, any buyers that wanna write an offer on this house? Any brave buyers? Oh, we're all trying to become homeowners here. Somebody's gotta be brave. You gonna do it? You're gonna, all right, we got one in the back. Okay, what are you gonna offer on this house?
580.
Oh, she's offering 580. It's how many days on the market? Did it just hit or has it been sitting for a while?
Hit.
Oh, it just hit? You're already coming in low. I like it. Yeah,
Not
that's
better than that.
okay. So you said she's gonna have to do better than that, right? So that's what you want to look at, strategy. If it just hit the market, and this is what your agent will also help you coach, right? We don't have to, not that you don't want to pay attention and be so lax about it. But you don't need to see every home as soon as it hits the market. Especially if you're trying to get a good deal, depending on what you can afford, price point wise. Okay. So a lot of times I coach clients and I'll share with them and I'll just say, hey, we don't need to see everything that as soon as it hits, we got to go see it. This isn't that type of market anymore, especially if we're looking at homes higher than really the price point we should be. And I would recommend doing that. Back in the day, we wouldn't do that. Right now, I would recommend it because people are overpricing homes and the homes are sitting on the market. You want to see those things. Exactly. You want to see them before they reduce the price.
Yeah.
So don't be afraid to bump up your price search. I hope this is okay for the agents that are in the room. Because I know my mom would be smacking me right now. I'm 2nd generation real estate. Never do that, right? You're setting their expectations to that. That's how I came into the market. You only kept it to what they could afford. You never went higher than that because expectations, the price point for 50K changes everything. Right? 25K changes everything. That's why your purchasing power is so important. Because if you can afford an extra 50K, it will change what you're seeing in terms of what your options are. Okay. So getting back to this. So she throws a 580 offer at you, just at the market. What's your natural reaction?
No, it's hit the market. I'm gonna wait till the best offer comes in.
Exactly. That's why you don't write that 580 offer on the first day on the market. Makes sense? Especially if it's bucket A property. The one that everybody wants, and we can tell it as agents and buyers as it's called crystallization, as you start understanding the market and what you truly can afford for what's out there. Guess what what property buyers typically purchase? Well, these probably higher probabilities. You can get an A, but you have to know the market, and you got to know when to come in swinging and when to come in with your best foot forward. So the question that I'll ask buyers, and this is important to know and to communicate to your agent, is this the gotta have house? Or is this one that it's okay if we lose this one? You need to express that to your agent. If it's the gotta have, you need to emphasize that to your agent. Doesn't mean that you're gonna get it, but you tell them this is everything that we're looking for right here. Because your agent needs to know we can't mess around. We gotta come in with our best because you get one first impression. You come in with the 580 offer on day one on the gotta have house, that's your first impression. Odds are you're not going to get it because if that first offer came in like that, more than likely other offers are going to come in. And as other buyers are calling to see if that property is available, they're asking, a good agent's going to say how many offers on the table, right, Leslie? And what do you think when you already got an offer in hand first day on the market?
Oh, it's gonna sell over.
It's going over asking price. We already know that as agents that have been doing that. So that's why we ask those questions. So some of the things you'll do is you're communicating with your agent And that's what they say, well, so what do we do next? Well, first get pre-approved, make sure the financing, you got to get the financial snapshot of where you're at today. Even if you're not ready today, it's okay. Where am I today? If my plan is 6 months, a year, 2 years from now, that's fine. Where am I today? Where am I trying to get to? And how do I get there? That's why you have to do that today, okay? To figure out where am I today? So that's the first step. Then after we do that, we know where we're at financially. We know we can afford something in this market, right? Then we're going to send those listings. So our agent's going to set us up on a search. And we'll see listings that come in, but who here has seen Redfin, Zillow, and every other thing that's out there, right? You have access to almost as much as we do in terms of when properties hit the market. So if you see something you like, you send it over, and you got to know the different statuses. There's active, active under contract, pending, and sold. Okay, so active under contract and pending. Does anybody know what that means? It means an offer has been accepted. So the house isn't available, even though it shows active, and then you see under contract right under it, they already accepted an offer.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Pending also means they accepted an offer. Active under contract means they could take backup. Just so you know, you could always submit a backup. And that's another important strategy in certain competitive markets, especially for bucket A. Try to get in backup offer position 1. What that means is that that first deal falls out of escrow.
You're up.
You have the first right to get that house, and they can't sell it to somebody else at a higher price. So you want to push, not just them give you a verbal and say, oh yeah, we'll let you know your backup. We'll let you know if it falls out. You don't want that. You want something in writing on a backup offer addendum says that you're in position 1. Huge strategy as well that we've won with our buyers on.
Are we allowed to know what the first offer is?
Sometimes yes, sometimes no.
Wow.
Sometimes they'll tell you, because the only way they'll give you backup position 1 is if you increase your price.
Correct.
Because they want you to match what that first one is.
Yeah, that
You
or
see what
better.
I'm saying? Or better, right? And you can do that. And some agents strategically will come in and back up position 1 and write 10 over what they know the other one is, because now the seller's like, well, I'll make an extra $10,000 if this falls out.
So you're not even going to try with that first offer.
Well, they're not going to do any repairs. And this is going to draw us into the most important part of what we're going to talk about, the timeline right now. So it's a perfect segue, okay? So we're going to jump ahead, but thank you guys for the example, because that helps, okay? After the back and forth, we have an accepted offer. So let's say the two of you came to an agreement at 610. You countered back and forth, you agreed at 610. So now we sold the home at 610,000. Great job, seller. Buyer, congrats, because you got your offer accepted and you only went 10 over asking. That's still a huge win. Okay. Once that seller accepts your offer on a standard deal, California is a consumer protective state, meaning the contract is built to protect you because you're taking all the risk. Once the seller closes, they cash out, they're gone. For the buyer, they need what are called contingencies. Contingencies are, you can write this out because this is important, good faith excuses out of the contract. It has to be a good faith excuse out of the contract. So you can look at it that when there's 2 parts in negotiating, 2 main parts. First role in winning the game of real estate is to get your offer accepted. Because once that seller accepts your offer at 610, now let's say Amelia comes with the $630,000 all cash offer 2 hours later. Can you cancel the first one and take that one?
Already accepted the offer.
You already accepted it, you're locked in. The best you can do is take that as a backup offer. Okay, that's the best. That could be backup position 1. So the first job is to secure the property. Make sure we lock that up, get our offer accepted. Then we have our due diligence period. And so a lot of times we go around and it's like, well, I don't know if I got to fix the roof. I got to do this. I got to do that. It's got these issues. I don't know enough. I don't know what I don't know. And it's freaking me out. Well, the good news is you're going to typically have almost 3 weeks after your offer is accepted to do your due diligence. And if you need to back out, you can back out. They changed it to 17 days. It used to be 21 days, but now 17 days. So offers accepted is day 0. Okay. This timeline is very important to understand. So you have 0, 3, 7, 17, 25. Okay. When your offer is accepted, that's day 0. So offer is accepted today, it's a Saturday. There's certain things get a little confusing, but you count every single calendar day unless it ends on a weekend or a holiday. Then it goes to the next day, 11:59. Okay, as they're trying to figure out time periods. You'll see a little bit more of what I'm talking about. I'm going to put buyer on top, seller on bottom. Yeah, also in keeping it simple. Two main duties for a seller and for a buyer. Seller has a duty to disclose, buyer has a duty to investigate. Okay, so your job as a buyer is to investigate, ask questions. When do we ask the questions? Well, seller has 7 days to get you their disclosures. You have 17 days to really be committed for final approval and to remove all your contingencies, all your good faith excuses out of the contract. So you have an additional 10 days after you receive all disclosures. Now, if the seller takes too long in getting you disclosures, say they give it to you on day 16. That doesn't seem fair, right? Only getting a day to review disclosures and do inspections and figure things out. You get an additional 5 days after receiving that. And that's an important rule to understand. You get a late disclosure, even after you removed all contingencies, and say day 24, they're like, oh yeah, I forgot to tell you. We had a roof leak 2 years ago. I forgot to mention that to you. And you're already close to the finish line. Guess what? You get 5 days after receiving that late notice to investigate. We're still back out of the deal. Okay, that's your contingency. These are your protections put in place. So it's important to understand that. So after your offer is accepted, we put in what Amelia was referring to, your money down. It's called your EMD, your earnest money deposit. EMD is negotiable. That's the most important thing to understand. It's negotiable. There's no fixed amount. What's customary in a very competitive market is 3%. So if you're looking at 610,000, 3% is how much? It's about 18,000. It's a lot of money, right? $18,000 is customary. Doesn't mean it's mandatory. We've got earnest money deposits, no joke, at $500. Helped a lot of VA military buyers. Military, it's no money down, 100% financing. So not saying that you're going to be able to write a $500 EMD. It's all based on what the market conditions are, okay? But what's typical, we used to have a rule of thumb that minimum $5,000 for an EMD was probably safe. That's on the lower side. 10 usually don't get countered back at, usually, unless you're in a bucket A situation where they got 7, 15 offers. Now you're going to want to be close to that 3% if you can. So how the EMD works, earnest money deposit, is that money. So Maybelline's offer got accepted. She has 3 business days now to get that EMD, that 18,000. We're just going to use 18 as an example, into escrow. Okay, so that buyer has to wire this money or drop off a check, but typically it's wired into escrow. Has anybody heard the term escrow before?
Yeah.
What does escrow mean?
Like in the process?
Yeah, that's great. So escrow process. So this is called the escrow timeline. So we opened escrow, meaning our offer was accepted, and now we've opened escrow. Okay, so process it's a perfect definition. You know, I'm gonna recruit you to be a real estate agent after this, right? Yeah, and that happens, I'm not joking. From home buyer classes, people have become real estate agents from the classes, and that's no joke. And they've been great agents too. So you may be coming over here soon. So escrow is part of the process, and then it's also an entity. Okay, remember them as a neutral third party. They don't work for the buyer or for the seller. They can't have bias towards either side. They have to be neutral, meaning they're not favoring either side. So escrow is kind of a safe spot. And they have a bunch of different arms in terms of who they're in communication with. They're with the buyer's agent, listing agent. They're with a title they'll be talking to. They'll be speaking with the loan officer, the closing department, right? All these different people. Escrow, we're going to have an escrow officer. So here we use All Valley Escrow. That's our in-house escrow company. So with All Valley Escrow, one of our trusted escrow officers, that money from the buyer, from Maybelline, is going to be sent into escrow in 3 business days. Offer was accepted on a Saturday. So how do we handle that? What day would that be due by?
Wednesday.
By Wednesday. Good. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday by 11:59 p.m. Probably not going to be open at 11:59 p.m. Right? So by 5 p.m. on Wednesday, we got to get that money wired in. If that money doesn't get wired in, and it's important to understand the rules of this. What could happen? The only way a seller can get out of a contract and have a true right to cancel is if a buyer doesn't do something by when they're supposed to. The seller now has one weapon, if you want to call it that, and it's called a notice of buyer to perform. They send that in writing to the buyer. Now the buyer has an additional 2 days to remedy that situation. So all they have to do is get that earnest money deposit in 2 days from getting that written notice. They're okay. You're still moving in the right direction. You see what I'm saying? Most listing agents won't send you that notice to buyer before. I'm just sharing with you just through experience. Most won't send it. They'll ask you, hey, are you going to send that in? Are you going to do it? But you have to know if you get one. And again, it's called a notice of buyer to perform, NBP. You see that, know that it's on, like take this seriously, because now you can open the door for the seller to get out. You don't want to do that. Doesn't mean that they're going to cancel, but you don't want to give them that kind of leverage. Okay. So if they send you that notice by form, you want to shut that door. Don't leave that door open. Let's shut it. And the way that we shut it is by now submitting that earnest money deposit. We get that in and we're good. Now buyers are still in the driver's seat moving through that escrow. So once your offer gets accepted, as long as you're willing to accept the house in its state and terms through the end and you can perform on the loan, it's your home. Nobody can take it from you. You're going to get that house. It's going to close. Seller can't change their mind. Say, nope, not going to sell it now. I'm having second thoughts. I really like this house, or it didn't work out on the other side. That's on a standard sale. So a big question for you to know as buyers is this a standard sale or a home of choice sale? Home of choice changes the rules. Gives home of choice is a contingency, gives the seller an out. So what a home of choice means is they're selling their home. So they're selling this property that we're buying. They're buying another home. If they don't get that other home or close on the other home, they can cancel our deal. That's a home of choice. Okay. So that's also when you hear people say it's a home contingent, that's what they're referring to. Contingent on purchase, meaning they got to sell a home to buy a home. Does anybody here have a home to sell if they were selling a home to buy a home? I know you mentioned
I don't
equity.
want to sell.
You're going to keep your
Yeah.
price, right? Good. So if you were to do that though, that would be what's called a contingent on purchase. And just so you know, it's always better in the hierarchy to take a home that's not contingent versus a home that's contingent. So you're all actually stronger as first-time buyers versus a contingent home, but you have to have a really good agent to make sure that they protect you in that process if you were to do that. Okay. So in terms of equity, there's HELOC programs. Just look into that. So HELOC is a good way to be able to protect your current interest rate without having to refinance and be able to take out a line of credit so you can draw money out, but it's based on how much equity you have to be able to do that. You can take that, use that as your down payment on your next home. You still will have to make payments on that, but I just want to make sure I acknowledge that. No problem. Okay, so back to the EMD. So with this money, 18K, a lot of money. Is it safe in escrow? Is it safe? Well, what if I cancel? What happens then?
Get the money back, right?
You should get the money back. It's not an automatic thing. Again, escrow is neutral. Just because we have an in-house escrow doesn't mean that they're going to favor us. They have to remain neutral. Both buyer and seller have to agree in writing to release the money. But as long as you follow the rules of the game, and the game is the contract and understand the contract, and you follow it, the other side's going to have no teeth in terms of being able to go after that money. They can threaten all they want, they won't. So that's one thing I can tell you as our agents with our company and being involved in management, we all communicate and make sure that we're going to protect you with it. I personally, in 20 plus years, have never lost a dime with earnest money deposit, personally. And I do that with all our agents to make sure that we're not going to lose any money here. But this money here can go towards a few different things. So say we go forward and close the deal. The two numbers you want to know on financing, this is important to know. What is my monthly payment? What's our total cash to close? Okay, you got to know how much money do I got to come in with. All right, so total cash to close is really important. So when you hear how much is my down payment, that's only part of it. Down payment, when they say 3.5% down or 5% down, that's just part of it. Then there's what's called closing costs afterwards. Closing costs, just quick rule of thumb, is roughly about 1% of whatever the purchase price is. That's just quick rule of thumb. It could be a little bit more, it could be a little less, but just buying at 6, figure about an additional 6,100. But there's also taxes. There's other things that are tied into that. So once you find out what that amount is, you're going to find out from your loan officer what should closing costs come out to. So what is my total cash to close? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So let's say total cash to close is 30K. Now 18 of that went in the earnest money deposit. Now what we have to come up with is 12,000, and we'll typically do that in the last week of closing and wire the rest of the money in. We're good to go. Okay. So it could be used towards your money down, your total cash to close. Let's say that all you needed was $15,000, or we negotiated another credit from the seller as we're going through the process. You could actually get some of that money back. Okay. If you have more money than what your total cash to close is. So now let's go through the time frame. So we got buyer, seller, we opened escrow. First thing we do is we wire our money forward. Next thing we do is we're going to send that contract to our lender. They're going to order what's called an appraisal. Has anybody heard of an appraisal? What's an appraisal?
You appraise your house, like the value of it.
So we got it accepted at 610,
The real value of the property.
the real value of the property, and it is in their opinion. It's supposed to be across the board. It can change based on who the appraiser is that's coming in and checking it, right? They're all licensed, they're all supposed to do it a certain way. We've seen them all over the place. Okay, so, but it's supposed to give you the real value, like you said. And it's the appraiser is hired by the bank that you're doing the loan through. Okay, so we can't influence it as buyer's agents. The listing agent can't influence it, no matter how hard they try. Appraisers are really interested. Like, no, don't talk to me. They want to walk through. There's actually an appraiser act that we all have to sign saying there will be no influence over the value of the home. So let's say the appraisal comes in at 590. What are our options at that point? So appraisal comes in lower than what buyer and seller agree upon. What can we do?
Put it the money back if they don't control or work without money.
Sometimes you can. So one of three things can happen. One, you can cancel the deal. You can walk away. Just say, no, house is only worth 590. I'm out, right? I'm not paying 610 for this house. That's the first option of what you can do. But what I would recommend doing is negotiate the price. Ask them to see if they'll drop it down. A year ago, they would laugh at you and say, I got 27 other offers, so you're not going to pay it. Somebody else will. And that buyer would have to cover the difference. So it would have to come between 590 and 610. If you got minimal money down, if you're putting less than 20% down, right? Then you're likely, with less than 20% down, going to have to cover that difference. But there are things, if you have 10% down, 15 or 20, that sometimes the difference, even though it's a $15,000 gap, this one's 20. I've had it where my buyer only had to pay an additional $1,500 instead of the $20,000. Seller got what they wanted because we actually had 10% down on that one, 10% down. It's just the mortgage insurance. It's a whole nother thing, but all they had to pay was an additional $1,500. Seller got what they wanted. Buyer's payment didn't change, and all they paid was an additional $1,500. So you want to talk to your lender. But your other option is to ask them to drop the price. And in this market, hopefully the seller's more willing to do that because they see, okay, the value of the home is 590. We don't have any other offers. Let's just drop the price, keep everybody happy and move forward. So that's first thing. Second thing that can happen is you can try to meet in between, say 600,000. Okay. Now buyer could have to come out of pocket an additional 10K. Seller took a $10,000 loss, but they made 10 over the appraised value. However you want to look at it, right? So now we met in the middle. Everybody's still, compromising now. We're still moving forward. Okay. So that's how it works with the appraisal there. Any questions on that? Does that make sense? Okay. So I'm going to keep moving here. So the appraisals typically we're going to try to do in the first week. We want to find that out as early as we can. Appraisals typically going to cost somewhere between $500 to $650 ballpark. So now what I want you keeping track of, if you can, is the out-of-pocket expenses, because this is important to know. So we already said we can protect that earnest money deposit and get a majority of that back, if not all that back, right? All of it back is the plan, okay? Is the key. Again, we don't want to get to where we remove all of our contingencies. The last thing we want to hear is called final loan approval. You get what's called the clear to close. We get the clear to close. That means on the lending side, we're good to go. There's no other conditions that need to be met. So that's between your agent and your loan officer to have a good relationship. And that's why it's also important to usually go with a referral from your agent, especially if they've been doing this for a long time, because when it comes down to this, and we're shopping and looking for some discount internet lender who they do it like a warehouse. They're taking as many in as they can and just passing you along through the system. Okay. But believe me, I've dealt with them, I've worked with them. Sometimes you can overcome it, but when you get down to that 17 days, it's crickets. There's no communication going on. They don't care. I hate to say it that way, but they don't care. They really don't. They're like, we're just gonna push these through. So, but we have $18,000 on the line. So I want to know that if my loan officer tells me you're good to go, we can now remove those final contingencies, because it's going to be my neck on the line as the agent saying you're good to go and remove these contingencies. Okay, so that's why that relationship's so important. Getting back to the EMD, I said the appraisal, just trying to make sure. I know I kind of jumped around a little bit, do that at times. Sorry, guys. You guys following where I'm at so far? So 17 days is when we want to know everything's good to go. Yes.
You mentioned, just for them to cut, if you could just elaborate just a little bit more, the standard sale versus the home of choice. Just kind of what that would play out for them, if that's something that they choose, since there are quite a few of those right now.
Okay, so if you're getting a home of choice, if there's a home that has that contingent where they could cancel. Right now, it sounds like, oh, stay away from that. And there are buyers and agents that'll say, stay away from it. But what we can do is, one, they could have already located their other property. So that's the first question. Have you found your other home of choice? Are you in escrow on that home of choice? Where are you at in the process? Have you removed all your contingencies? Are they fully locked in? Right? We want to know those things. So we can do it one of two ways. One way is we don't start paying for anything. That's what I was going to get to, out of pocket. Okay. Because I don't want to overcomplicate it, but I'm going to just address Amelia's request. We can hold off on starting our timeframes on the home of choice until they remove all their contingencies or are locked in on their purchase. And then once they give us evidence of that, now we start our period. Now we start our inspections. We can start those things. That's one way of doing it. The other way of doing it is doing it where we start it right out the gate. So as soon as our offer is accepted, we do it, but now we have to pay our out-of-pocket expenses. And these are your out-of-pocket expenses. You got your appraisal, home inspection, and then there's other inspections as well. Okay, so as a buyer, this is your cost of doing business. So I'm going to flip it back to the standard. Is that enough?
That's
I'm
perfect.
touching on it. Okay, because I don't want to over confuse. I want to make sure we know how to do it on the standard sale first. And then that's the caveat on a home of choice. Okay, so you're out of pocket here, out of pocket expenses. Appraisals typically, like I said, $450, $500 to $650. Home inspection, same ballpark, $450, $600-ish. That's based on the side. Then other inspections, they could have septic, they could have chimney, they could have sewer lateral, right? There's all these other ones, but we don't do these yet until we do our general home inspection. Once we do our general home inspection, so your cost basics is about $1,000 out of pocket that you're gonna have to pay at the time you do those inspections. And you're not gonna get that money back if we cancel. So it's very important that you understand. That's about your cost of doing business. Does that make sense?
What is the last?
Inspection, so home inspection, and then these are more specific
Oh, okay.
inspections. So your home inspection, your home inspectors, kind of jack of all trades, master of none, right? They're gonna go through and look for red flags in the property. They're gonna go into your attic space. They're gonna test the water. They're gonna test the plumbing. But we can do more specific if they're like, well, this wasn't draining really well, or this electric or these outlets weren't working. So they're gonna separate and say safety items versus just cosmetic and other things that they're gonna note through the process. They'll take pictures, put recommendations in. It's usually about 450 to 6. Best thing you can do. Never waive that. If you waive your inspection, you still do a home inspection. And you'll see more about that. That's the best. This is one of the biggest investments you're gonna make. You gotta know what you're getting. So we never not do a home inspection. Okay, that's one of the best things that I can emphasize. Then based on what they find, we can send an electrician out. And that's going to be additional money, usually about $90 an hour, right? Then an HVAC person, it's about another $100, and they're going to check your furnace and your AC and tell you what that looks like. Then there's other things. There's a chimney, is $150 for a chimney. Sewer lateral can be $250. Like you can just see dollar signs going right now, right? On a home that's an older home that has potential issues and these red flags pop up, you're going to want to spend that money. So you can be in it about $2,000, right? About $2K, probably on the high side that you want to plan for these inspections. Most of them, though, are going to be your general home inspection and your appraisal. That's for the most part. In Ventura, you're gonna do sewer lateral, but the seller pays for the sewer lateral inspection, and that has to clear, and that's your plumbing that's going from your house out to the sewer line. There's a lot of times it's clay piping and roots get into it, and it backs up your plumbing, okay? What's that?
First time.
Yep, so, yeah, so you want to make sure that you get that, and they do a camera inspection through that. That's usually one of the best inspections that I've seen that you can do. So even if it's not required for Ventura, it's about $250 a lot of times for a sewer line. And then you can pay even for cameras to go through your plumbing and the rest of the house. So I would recommend doing that because I've dealt with my own plumbing issues at the house that I bought. So do the camera inspection if you can, okay? So there's some money there, right? But it's important to know about this ahead of time, okay? Is that helpful? You guys, are we moving pretty good? So after we do the inspections, we get our results. Now, if we sent out an electrician, they give us an invoice of what it would cost to repair it. We got a few options. We can do what's called a request for repairs. In the request for repairs, we get to write something up and say, seller, will you fix these things? And in this market, you can ask for those things, but listen to your agent for guidance. Because if we ask for star, the moon, and everything, odds are they're going to be like, nope, we're not going to do anything. You're nitpicking every little thing, and we get them upset. So we keep it focused typically on safety items. But this is the next important thing to know and understand. What is required by law that the seller has to fix? Unless I got the answer. I know the answers. Yes. Does anybody know?
Asbestos,
That's a great one. It's a good idea.
lead paint.
Lead-based paint. So these are all disclosures that come up, but it's not a required to be
Oh, okay.
fixed.
That's
That's good. Yeah, so for Ventura County, that's good clarification, but pretty much throughout the states, your minimum for what's called government retrofits, water heater double strap, smoke detectors, carbon monoxide detectors. That's it. That's all that's required to be up to code.
See,
It is easy for a seller, right? But for a buyer, it's like, well, wait a minute. What about all these safety items? What about this electrical wire sticking out of the wall here, right? And these other things. So there are certain things depending on the type of loan that you have that could make other things more of a requirement. VA could do that. FHA can, actually all of them can. The home's still got to be habitable, right? So there's still protections in place, but in terms of negotiations, know that at a starting point, that's all they have to fix. But as agents and in this office, we typically will try to focus on the safety items and try to get as much of that credited or fixed, corrected. And if not, we can also request a credit. So if you get a credit, that goes towards your closing costs. Remember I said the $30,000 total cash to close. We already had 18 in, say we got a $10,000 credit, right? 10,000, now all we have to come up with is an additional $2,000. Okay, so the seller can help us towards our cash to close or our closing costs. So that's an option too, in terms of whether you can negotiate that up front or in the transaction. And again, if you're in a multiple bucket A, you're probably not going to want to ask for credits up front. It's probably going to be pretty challenging. You can. I was surprised on the last one that I did. There were a lot of credit requests up front. It's like, okay, you guys are in multiple. We'll see how this all plays out. And it actually worked out with the buyer that ultimately got it, still got a credit. Got one, but they came in higher in price. They had to go up, okay, in order to get that credit. So so that's where we're at right now. 3 days, buyers, 7 for the disclosures, 17 for the all contingencies. After that, we're almost done. No, we're getting there. We're getting close. After we get into the final stretch now what the last things we'll do is we'll sign loan docs. I wrote 25 days, 5 days prior to close. We do what's called the final walkthrough. So say we ask the seller to fix the roof. That would be a big one, right? But say we had them fix the roof, like there was something that needed to be corrected. We had them do a little bit of termite work, and we had them do fix a couple of outlets. In that final walkthrough, we're going to verify that those things are all fixed. If they're not fixed, we're typically not going to close, or we're going to have something in writing that says this is going to be fixed by X date and seller's paying for it, if that's what was agreed upon. Okay. So that's our final walkthrough. Make sure there's no new holes in the walls. Nobody kicked anything in or dropped anything down the toilets like we saw during the foreclosure and short sale prices. Crazy stuff back then. But you're checking to make sure that the home is still in that state that you first walked into that property. Okay. So we do that final walkthrough, and we don't do it the day of closing. The last thing is funding and closing. Okay, funding typically will happen the day before. Sometimes it's the same day and they do what's called a special close. But it's got to fund by normally like 11 a.m. or noon in order to be able to record that day. Once you get confirmation of closing, the home is recorded that it's your property now. Now, congratulations, you're all homeowners on that day of confirmation. So that's the gist of it. There's a little bit more with the loan docs, but that's the stack of papers that you're going to get in the last week. Does that sound pretty similar to when you went through the process?
About 250 pages.
What's that? Yeah, 350 pages. You're gonna sign your life away. It's trustful. It's trustful. And I know, and a lot of times you're just gonna meet with a notary for that, to do that. But you can always call your agent, you can call your loan officer, and they can walk you through on any questions with that. So, but any questions? I know you're all experts now after we ran through that. Is it helpful to kind of understand how it works? Cool. Any last questions that you guys have? I mean, if you got anything.
I did have a question. I just didn't want to interrupt. When you were talking about like Redfin and all that, I remember back then my realtor telling me actually not to look because some like the HOA sometimes were way off or the status wasn't actually accurate.
That's a good point.
Is that still like how comfortable do you feel with those properties being like accurate?
You should rely on your agent for what they send you, right?
Okay,
To be more accurate, because there are times that it'll show active status and it's already sold, or it's been sold for like 2 years.
Yeah.
So all those sites work off of generating leads, and they sell those leads to agents. So a lot of times we don't want our clients on them. I've just accepted it as being inevitable now, right? But we used to say the same thing, to stay off it, because every time you click on, oh, I want to see that home, or it says showing times at these times, right? You think I can see it at any one of these times. When you click on it, then you're submitted as a lead to whoever they're selling that to. And that's really the most annoying part of the process. And many buyers just don't know any better with it. So just be careful with that, but also in terms of information, it's not always accurate, but a lot of things are real time. So you're going to get it pretty quick too, but your agent should be able to set you up on something. And what you get from there that's all solid info, but you still have to do that process. I was saying, like, take a picture of it or text it over to your agent, say, hey, I'm interested in this one. They'll vet it, see if there's any offers on the table, see if it's still available before you set up the show. Okay? And then we'll check that. But great question. Yeah, no, thank you. Any other questions? Usually there's a lot of questions. I don't know if this is a good thing or a bad thing. I'm trying to run through as many as we can, but there is a lot, and that's why we recorded it also, so that you can rewatch it. So just we'll send out the link to all the agents and they can share it with you. And then if you have any questions that come up, reach out to your agent. They can help you out with it, but hopefully this gives you a good foundation to really understand the process and know that this is all very attainable, very doable. And when you have agents who are empowering you with all the information, now it's like, all right, now let's go. Let's write. Because when you write an offer, you really have nothing to lose. It doesn't cost you anything when you write the offer. There's the one thing we have is a $3.95 processing fee, but that's on closing. But you're not paying $3.95 every time you write an offer. Okay. So write offers. Once you get into the process of doing it, now you're going to get to where you can actually get your offer accepted. And then knowing, again, just because you write doesn't mean you're locked in and stuck, but we don't want to write offers in bad faith. We want to make sure we're committed to the home that we're actually writing an offer on. It's not as scary as, we all think it is. So, but no, that's all I got. Unless Amelia, is there anything else you wanted to share?
You did a great job.
Well, thank you. Anything that the agents in here would like to share or add to what we talked about? Market, anything that I missed with that, or questions with the market? It's really the next step again, is find that financial snapshot of where you're at today. That's really the key. What programs are out there? Because there are a lot of different programs out there. If it's down payment, that's an issue. Or credit. On the credit, I wanted to add with what Amelia said. A lot of these loan officers have what are called credit analyzers. And so after they run, sorry, my stomach's going. After they run your credit, they can see like, okay, if you pay this one down, we can increase your score X amount. That's where you want the help from them. And that's all free service that they offer to do that. But no, that's all I got. And if you guys have any questions, feel free to hang around and, we appreciate you all coming in today. So thank you guys.
Enjoy some goodies.
Yes, please do.
Yeah.
I saw somebody recently got a, I don't know if it's true or not, I saw on social media. They got a 2.75 interest rate. Is that even possible?
2.75 interest rate. They may be doing some type of buy down. It's probably like a 3-2-1 buy down. So you can buy it down 3 years or 3 interest or percentage points,
Mhm.
right? That sounds super low at 2.7 though. Right now, it's probably around mid-6s, getting closer to 7. So the last I heard was 6.5 to 6.75 for a lot. But then FHA, that is one thing I wanted to share. So have you all heard of an FHA loan? So FHA loan, which was hard to get an offer accepted with a year ago, right now you get those offers accepted. It's called mortgage insurance. And mortgage insurance, it was just dropped for FHA loans, which helps. So on an $800,000 purchase, you would save about $200 a month right now, just based on the reductions called their basis points. It was 85 and they dropped it down to like 55 basis points. So all that means is your payment went down about $200 a month on an $800,000 purchase price. So for FHA, and FHA is usually the least amount of money down, about 3.5%. So those FHA, they drop that down to help you with your monthly payment. So for many, if you're looking between 4 to 6, probably save an extra $100 a month right now with an FHA loan. So just different things to look at, but don't let rates or house prices prevent you from, that's usually where it's like, oh, I'm gonna wait till the rates go down. Everybody's waiting for that. Or prices, I'm gonna wait for the prices to go down. Everybody's waiting for that. So the second it gets better, everybody comes in and now you're back in the same situation.
Well, the good thing about the rates, come in with a higher rate, buy at a higher rate. They do go down, you can always refinance. So
That's exactly it. That's exactly it. So just make sure you can handle the things that you got right now. That's it. Even if you're stretching yourself, just make sure you can handle it, but get the home that you want.
Yeah.
Don't settle on it because you're trying to be, conservative, because it's every single time. That's one of the biggest things that I've heard, not to overstretch everybody. But when you get conservative on it, you're going to regret it, because if the market does shift, that's the home you're going to be in for the next. That's what happened with us. We bought our first one at 415, well, 1,100 square foot home. And I thought it'd be for 2 years. 2 of my brothers and I bought it. I was like, all right, we'll sell it, make a bunch of money. It jumped almost 100,000 in a year and a half. So I'm like, cool, we're gonna do good, but I didn't want to pay capital gains. So I waited to 2 years, market started shifting. And now we couldn't make that. And that's all right, let's hang in there. It took 16 years later to finally get back up, okay, to where it needed to be. So just buy for the long term. Okay, it's typically 5 to 7 years up, 5 to 7 years down. That's normally how it is. Bottom mark was 2011. 2018 is when everybody thought it would cap. What happened since 2018 to 2023? It flew off even higher, right? So that's why it was, oh, it's gonna crash, it's gonna crash. It's slowing down. That's why the interest rates went up, to slow things down, because it was going out of hand, just going crazy. So now we're back much more to a normal market. That's the key. That's what you want. You don't want the crazy either way. You want that normal market and get into something you can handle. So it's a great question with that. And it is, just can only give you as much information as we can, but definitely, let us know if there's anything else. Cool, a great question, but thank you guys. All right.
Thank you. Perfect, thank you.
Is this my fault?
no, not really.
No? You guys are good? And.
Yeah.
You guys.
Yeah, very.
Sorry about it. Yeah, so it's.